Yo, what up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Kenny coming at you as your host today. Make sure you're clicking all the buttons below the video and all that stuff, showing some love to the video. It really does help us grow, and we really do appreciate all the support y'all have been showing us so far if you've been with us already. And we appreciate each and every one of you a part of our positive community where we just love to get into all the topics we discuss here and just have a good time in the comments and everything like that. So make sure you do that and make sure you join us today. But we have a hell of an episode to discuss today, y'all. Mandalorian Season 3 has been running for the last 6 episodes. It's been up and down. People have had mixed opinions all over the place. I personally have loved more of the episodes than I have not. There's only really 2 episodes that one I didn't like, which was the last one, and then episode 5 before that I thought was just okay. But the first 4 episodes I thoroughly enjoyed and was really digging them overall and really loved them. So I was really hoping to get back to that vibe, and we certainly did. I'm talking about The Mandalorian Season 3, baby. Episode 7. Episode 7, man. Episode 7. Chapter 23. Titled The Spies. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Man, shit is going down in this episode. I absolutely loved it. I loved how we just focused on the story at hand and got strictly into the Mandalorian factions coming together, going back to scout Mandalore and start to make it safe and start to, survey what's out there so they could start to rebuild their land out there and start to rebuild their home on Mandalore. So all that coming together was really, really fucking awesome. The dynamic of seeing the different factions coming together was so awesome and interesting and fun. And so engaging to watch, and all the funny side gags with IG-12 and Grogu, hella hilarious, but it's also cool having him have a kind of suit to where he's kind of a little bit more capable in the situations and things of that nature. So do like the update in the swerve they kind of did with the character there, because I thought they were just going to bring him back to life with the same old, IG-11 stuff with Taika Waititi and all that stuff, which I didn't mind seeing him come back as that character per se, in the sense of him doing it again, because he nailed it the first time. But I just thought the sacrifice was really well done, and we would have lost the impact of that. So really glad that they kept that and kind of repurposed the character in a certain sense. So that to me was definitely a plus as well. And as I mentioned earlier, or in previous episodes, the CGI has been incredible this season, and this episode is no different, man. Other than a shot or two here and there, the CGI never looks bad whatsoever. Really, really dug that. And the only thing that I would say as a negative complaint with this episode that I personally felt was the monster of the week sort of thing is becoming a little bit repetitive this season, more so than previous seasons. Not that the other seasons didn't have monsters and things like that, and creatures that they would come across, if you will, monster of the week kind of thing, but it wasn't necessarily every single week. Where this season, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there has been a monster encounter almost every single episode except maybe one, if I'm not mistaken, which might have just been the droids. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think pretty much every other episode we had some kind of monster encounter just about. And I was just like, okay, maybe not chapter 3, but the third episode, maybe not. But other than maybe 2 episodes, we've had a lot of Monster of the Week going on this season. So I hope they step away from that for the finale and just focus on the characters and the story a little bit more, because I just get a little, I don't know, it's just getting a little repetitive for me personally. Maybe it's not bothering any of y'all, but for me, it's getting a little repetitive. But that's about it for my overall thoughts. Dope episode, one of the best ones they've ever done. Rick Famuyiwa, who is the director of this one of the executive producers, has done several episodes of the last couple seasons prior to this one. Has absolutely nailed it. This might be his best work yet. I believe he's doing the next episode as well, so I'll reserve saying that until the end of the season and wait and compare those 2 episodes together. But yeah, man, Rick Famuyiwa is absolutely killing it in the Mando universe, and I'm so glad after things fell apart at DC with him doing The Flash, he was able to bounce back and do something of the same caliber with this, because I just love Rick Famuyiwa's work from Dope in 2015, an independent film he made. Really awesome movie y'all should check out. So really been rooting for the guy ever since, and I'm glad to see him just ultimately killing it in this thing. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get into this thing. We start off, man, essentially where I'm just putting this up for now, but we have Katie O'Brien's character over there on Coruscant doing her Blade Runner thing and contacting none other than Moff Gideon. to discuss their plan to get all the Mandalorians in one place, and how could they do so, and what's the circumstances behind that. And then she ends up updating him on the fact that they're all going to be going to Mandalore and things of that nature, and they can all draw them there, essentially, or not draw them there, but they're all going there anyway, so they could essentially rendezvous there. And since they have that setup going on, that would be the perfect way to do it. Since you're already trying to take over Mandalore and mine the resources, that's where they're going to be at. So just make sure you get the troops, make sure you get the armor ready, you know what I'm saying? And we'll get into that in a bit here as we recap the episode. But man, oh man. But that was a setup right there. So we knew Moff Gideon was on to our Mandalorian crew here. And that's when we jump back over to them on Navarro. And they're all essentially getting ready to gathering up because they're getting ready to make their plans and move forward and bring the clans together fully. And the plan is going to be going back to Mandalore. But before they do so, Grogu and Din have got to make a little bit of a run. They got to go meet up with none other than Greef Karga, who ends up, giving him a little bit of some celebratory wine, if you will. And going on from there, him and Greef Karga and Din Djarin start talking it up and whatnot. And he's saying, "Oh yeah, I got another gift for you as well. Come check this out, bro." And then he ends up showing him none other than a repurposed IG-11, now titled IG-12. That isn't actually a sentient being, if you will, isn't actually a typical droid as we know it traditionally. He is actually more of a vehicle that Grogu can control and make speak for him and everything like that. So that is ultimately super funny with the yes and the no and all that stuff, and the whole thing with him. No, yes. Like, because Din Djarin's like, "Oh yeah, he's too young to be operating heavy machinery," and then Grogu gets in there and he's like, "No." He's like, "Huh? What do you mean no?" And freaking so hilarious, dude. Like, so many fun gags with him this season, but this one by far is the best one because it kind of moves the story actually forward, gives him a little more mobility in a way to kind of hang with the gang in a sense until he starts getting older down the line in the series potentially. So really, really dug that, and just a really funny gag with the yes and the no. Straight up Daniel Bryan vibes right there, you know what I mean? So really, really had some good times with that. And then as they're making their way through the city and shit, he's over here grabbing random food off the cart and shit, and then Amanda ends up having to pay for it and everything like that. And he's like, "Yes, yes, 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 yes," like having the whole freaking Daniel Bryan moment. It's so funny, man. But then as we progress from there, Din and Grogu, he's all, "Shit, man, this is not working for me. I hate this thing." He does not like this IG-12. But they make their way back to the gang, and now they're making their plans fully. This is where Bo, earlier she just assembled everybody. Now she's talking about, hey, we need to get off Navarro, and we need to go, or earlier she said we need to get off Navarro and go settle our homeland. And now she's like, all right, I'm going to need volunteers to go over to Mandalore to do this thing. And then the first one to step up, of course, is Din Djarin. And then other ones like Vizsla and some other people from both sides of the faction. You know, Casca Reeves, played by the great Sasha Banks. The other guy that was leading the charge for a while. They end up volunteering as well, and they end up assembling that team together along with the armorer, actually, as well. And they end up going up to do a halo jump, essentially, back onto the planet of Mandalore, because they're over there on Navarro at the moment. Din Djarin and everyone says their goodbyes to Greef Karga and everyone on Navarro, and they make their way over to the great planet of Mandalore itself, and that's when we get to the big old halo jump, baby. And that was one of my favorite, like, frame shots right there, how they had, like, all the other Mandalorians sitting there, and then, like, the camera, like, zooms in over to Din Djarin. It was a really cool shot. But, yeah, so really cool stuff there. And then they end up doing the halo jump down there into Mandalore, and now they're going to make their way through and try to explore what's going on fully as a group and try to, clear it out, make sure everything's all clear. And as they make their way down there through Mandalore, they end up running into some other Mandalorians, actually, as well, that have been staying on Mandalore this whole time, and a very, very, very small faction since the others have all perished, unfortunately. And they end up helping them out of a conflict that they end up putting them on this, like, big-ass, like, wind boat ship thing. And they all get on that and travel with these guys, and they end up making their way down to the Great Forge, which was like the capital, the center of the capital city of Mandalore back in the day that fans such as ourselves have already seen in Clone Wars and Rebels and whatnot. But these are the remains of what that used to be all those years ago, several decades ago, in the present timeline of the show. So really interesting and cool world building going on there as well. And then we end up running into our monster of the week situation, of course, right before that. And then after we make our way down to the Great Forge fully, they end up getting ambushed by stormtroopers in Beskar armor, it looks like. Because at first I think it's another faction of Mandalorians. And then Bo-Katan's like, ah, shit, homie, this ain't no Mandalorians. And, oh yeah, real quick, actually, I skipped over to scene where Vizsla and that one Australian dude were actually having that fight. These guys are always fighting people, man. But it was a pretty cool little skirmish between the two, you know what I mean? A little show of respect or whatever, a show of dominance, whatever you want to call it. But that was a pretty cool, fun little scene right there. And then Grogu gets in the middle with IG-12, and he's like, no, and he separates them, and then Bo-Katan's like, oh, shit, you taught your Padawan well, homie. And he's like, I didn't teach him that. And then he gives him the nod, like, oh, yeah, hell yeah, kid, good job, son. And then Grogu's like, hell yeah, I got you, dad. And then they make their way over to the Great Forge and all that other stuff. So my bad, I jumped ahead there. But now as we make our way to the Great Forge, they end up getting ambushed by the stormtroopers and everything wearing Beskar armor, which ends up telling us the answer of who broke out Moff Gideon before, and that was people working for the remains of the Empire in Beskar armor, because now he has his own set of Beskar armor, because as they make their way through the Great Forge, fighting their way through, they get stuck in these hallway doors that split up the factions. Din Djarin gets left alone, and he ends up getting cornered, and he has to use his flamethrowers on his wrist, but that ends up not panning out fully because he only takes out some of them until they cross his arms over with these like hook type of weapons, and that's it for him, man. They have him tied up, no weapons, gets disarmed, and none other than Moff Gideon himself in his new Beskar Mandalorian armor Empire style thing. Oh man, my head, it hurts. Ugh. Long story, don't ask, guys. But yeah, where was I? Yeah, so Moff Gideon shows up and reveals, like, aha, I got y'all. I've been mining the resources of Mandalore, and every culture has something to offer and all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. So I'm here to fuck y'all up. Din Djarin, take him to the debriefing room, get rid of this fool, and then kill the rest of these fuckers. And then they all end up getting into this big skirmish. But then Paz Vizsla himself steps up and puts himself on the line and puts himself on the line to help Bo cut out a hole in the other door with the Darksaber, so that way she can make a exit for everyone to get out of. And as she does so, she's trying to help Vizsla to get out of there, but he's like, no, this is the way. And he keeps the door shut behind him, and he ends up going after all these guys with his minigun. But then, after he thinks he's taken out all the stormtroopers, essentially, these guys show up. The new Sith troopers, or whatever the fuck these guys are. Sith, Praetorian Guard, whatever the fuck. But these guys are cool. And this was just as dope as that Last Jedi sequence, if not better. Not saying the whole film's dope. If you don't like it, whatever. Not trying to get into that whole debate. Just saying. Reminds me of that Last Jedi type of look right there. And then they end up getting into this big, into this battle with Paz Vizsla. And at first he's kind of giving them a run for their money, you know what I'm saying? But ultimately, he ends up falling to them and gets killed off, man. Everyone else made it out of there except for him. R.I.P. to Paz Vizsla, or whatever the hell his name is. I don't know if it's Paz Vizsla, but Vizsla at least. And yeah, R.I.P. to him. Bo got everyone else out of there. But Din Djarin is kept prisoner. And Grogu's definitely going to be upset about that one, so they're going to have to make a daring rescue on the next episode. That is for sure. But that's pretty much blasting through a lot of the main plot points there, a lot of the big things that went down, and the big setup for the next episode. I think there's a really high potentiality that we could see Admiral Thrawn, y'all. We all seen him in the freaking Ahsoka trailers. Unless you're living under a rock, check out our reaction on that as well. But yeah, all that stuff is brewing in the background, and I think it's going to tie in a little bit here in the finale of this episode, because I believe he is the one that's orchestrating all this stuff that we've been hearing about this whole time. So he is directly involved with this, and I think directly would be targeting the Mandalorians just as much as Moff Gideon would want to. So I want to hear y'all thoughts about this episode down below in those comments. Let me know what you thought about it. Make sure you're clicking like, subscribe, and all that good jazz. We got plenty more content to come this week, hopefully. I was a little under the weather beginning the week off, long story, but feeling a bit better now, trying to get back in the swing of things. So gonna have our new long form episodes coming at you guys, and some screen rankings and stuff. So we got a lot of stuff coming at y'all, so just bear with me. We got some cool stuff coming, so make sure you stay tuned, don't sleep. Much love, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, peace.